Ag Tire Talks Driving Yield Through Tire Technology, sponsored by Michelin Agriculture. Don't forget to follow Ag Tire Talk on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and X.
James Tusher with Ag Tire Talk here. I'm with Ken Brodbeck from Precision Inflation. He's the Vice President of Technology. Thank you for being on Driving Yield Through Tire Technology.
Thanks for having me, sir.
All right, so today we're going to talk about central tire inflation systems. So the first thing I want to talk about is Ken, we just walked Farm Progress. We saw more and more of those. I mean, much more than the year prior. Even in the past 6 months, we've seen more fitments. Tell us where we're at today compared to 6 months or even a year ago on how much more popular the central tire inflation systems have become.
Sure. What we've seen is the markets realizing the advantages of central tire inflation. The first OEM to actually have their own system was Fendt, and that was probably 8 or 9 years ago. Our company that we buy from is PTG out of Neuss, Germany, and they've been retrofitting tractors as a dealer installed option on John Deere 6 and 7,000s for over 14 years. And now, just last year, John Deere Waterloo announced that they would have, 2 years ago, they announced the 7R would be approved to have the PTG system installed that we sell. And then they've introduced their own 1 year ago in Decatur, Illinois at the Farm Progress Show. They have an option for limited sizes on 8R tire sizes, and they have, I believe, a planner system, but I haven't seen one released yet. But if when the big green guys come out, it's something to pay attention to.
Yeah, and just to kind of lay the framework, the central tire inflation system has been around. Is it 3 decades? How long has it been since some of the first ones came out in Western Europe, Ken?
They've been doing it for over 30 years. PTG, the founder, who I know very well, worked on his uncle's farm in the summers, and he's a mechanical engineering student. He said you should be able to change tire pressures on the go from the cabin, and that's what he did as his senior design project. And that was over 30 years ago. It's probably 35 years ago now that was first created, and then it's built from there.
Interesting how it's becoming so much more popular. And so really what you're saying is that all all the big tractors, whether it be a Deere 8R, a Vario 1050, whether
Mhm.
that be, the big ones, mechanical front wheel drive, we've seen them come from the factory. But in addition to that, they're also approved them for a little bit smaller horsepower. We've seen it approved for the Deere 7R. We even saw a Fendt 200 horsepower
Exactly.
Vario 6 series. So really, just in short, what you're saying is that just across the board, all the tractors really are down to 200 horsepower, seeing it, and you can
Mhm.
retrofit just about any piece of equipment from the implements
Yes,
all the way up to sprayers or,
exactly.
four-wheel drive
Corn
tractors or
planters.
whatever they
Mhm.
happen to be. Okay,
the
great.
analogy that the analogy I'd give when radial tires first came out for ag, it was only aligned with the largest horsepower tractors, maybe the largest combines. And then as the advantages became more apparent, it then worked its way down to now you'll see 50 and 60 horsepower tractors. I've worked on one just last month. It was 39, a 40 horsepower. I would call an overgrown lawnmower, but it had a front end loader and 3-point hitch, and they had radial tires on that tractor, 20-inch
Yeah,
front radials. So
so
we'll see the same with
exciting.
CTIS. Mhm.
So much efficiencies to be picked up and so much reduction in soil compaction. So now that we covered the piece that really it's got to the point where central tire inflation says, regardless of the piece of equipment or implement, you can get it retrofitted. They can call you,
Yes.
they can just set up an appointment, right? And you can go through the cost or what have you. But let's talk about a couple of new features that have hit the tape as of late. I think you mentioned that there's something new with pull behind sprayers.
Yes, in Germany, and we will see it here, I'm sure, shortly, that we've had several of our very technologically thinking farmers saying, why can't this be automatic? Today, you store a field pressure and a road pressure, and you have to tell the system to inflate or deflate.
Cheers. Yes, yes.
And and some people have said, well, if I have a sprayer and as the tank decreases in fill, if I'm at half fill or a quarter fill, could I not? Could I certainly run a lower tire pressure? And we say yes, but
Amen.
you have to
Yes.
manually tell it. There's
Right.
two manufacturers in Europe who Horsch is one of them,
Oh yeah,
where
horse,
they
the
have it.
Germans.
Yep, of course. They work with PTG. They have to have the interface created so that the horse system says, okay, we know it's half full, so we need 5 psi lower, or it's only a quarter fill. We
Ah,
can go down 8 psi lower than the full pressure, and it automatically, because the float or the mechanical, they maybe have a load cell on the platform of the sprayer tank, tells this PTG system, okay, add or subtract pressure. Okay, we're now filling it back up. Okay, air the tires back up while you're filling. So it takes the operator chance for error out of the equation.
So awesome. So really it's automatic. So it's either a float in
Yes,
the tank, changing levels. So it says, hey, you know what, reduce it. The levels are going down. Or maybe it's even, sometimes they have leaf springs or however that they could sense it, but it's a
correct.
mechanical way of saying, hey, there is a change. And really it takes
Yes.
advantage of the live load and reduces the
Hmm.
pressure in sync with the
Right.
change.
Correct.
What an awesome deal, man. I love that.
It's nice.
Okay. Yeah. So there's one other piece. I think there's an alarm. It's easy to just kind of keep going, but now they've got it alarmed so you can to make sure that it's right, either road or field. Why don't you elaborate on that in brief, Ken?
Well, it's something that anybody who's been in, whether you're in your car or in your tractor, or your combine or whatever, and you're busy, something broke down, the trucks aren't there, we need seed, and you're moving, setting the tractor up, getting the planter folded up to go down the road, and you phone call and you forget that you needed to inflate the tires. In
Cheers.
the
Yes.
past, it's something that most operators you will feel in the seat of your pants because the tractor doesn't feel uh, stable. My technical term is squishy, and you say, "Oh, I
Uh-huh.
forgot," hit the button, and you're running. The tractor will still then inflate itself, or the planter will inflate itself. PTG came up with about a year ago what they call a overspeed detection. Basically, you set the speed where you want it to give you a warning if you forget, let's say 15 miles an hour.
Perfect.
And if you hit 15 miles an hour, the computer will give you, after probably 15 seconds, it'll give you an audible warning. And then if you don't do anything, it will assume that you need to have air put in the tires and it will start inflating. So they call it an overspeed detection. It's not automatically inflating, but it gives you a warning and it'll actually turn the compressor on and start inflating to your preset road pressure. So that's a really nice feature. If you happen to forget and it's
Or you
always
hired
busy in the
someone.
spring.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly right.
Perfect. So let's just summarize, make sure I got it. So really, when it comes down to it, what we've seen in the change of central tire inflation systems is just really grown to be super popular, really continues to go down the horsepower ladder. Not only that, but just about any piece of
Yes.
equipment you could fit with it nowadays. Point one.
Yes.
Point two is we're starting to see cyclic load taken into account, and there's some manual things like maybe a float in a sprayer tank or a load
Hmm.
cell that can then sense the change in load and then reduce that air pressure accordingly. Is that correct, Ken?
Correct. Yes.
And lastly, there's some cool new features now where, it takes the air out of it. So there's alarms when, say, you should be reducing pressure or should be increasing inflation because of speed, right? It's
Correct.
telling you to say, hey, push that button and do something different.
Yes. Correct.
And that's a wrap, Ken. Thank you very much.
Very good. Glad to do it.